Coming up next on City Corner, we learn about the African American tradition of watch night. Please stay tuned. Welcome to City Corner. I'm your host, Melanie Adams. Today, we're talking about the African American tradition of watch night. Joining me is St. Louis University Assistant Professor of History, Dr. Katrina Thompson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first, let's talk a little bit about watch night, and can you tell me the story behind watch night?
Well, essentially, what's taking place is 1862, America is entrenched in a civil war.
Okay.
And President Abraham Lincoln sort of brought up this idea of Emancipation Proclamation. It's going on that this may be coming out.
Okay.
And so what happens is slaves, and mainly free blacks in the North, are talking about that President Abraham Lincoln is going to free the slaves. Mm-hmm. And so December 31st, 1862, mainly free blacks in the North and some in the South are talking about and waiting to midnight to have this Emancipation Proclamation come out. And so basically watch night is waiting for the Emancipation Proclamation to come out, and people are celebrating this. People are celebrating, even free blacks are celebrating this idea that all African Americans can be free. Okay. So it's a cultural, spiritual, religious experience in the African American community that just expressed freedom from a bondage system.
Now, talk a little bit about, I guess, what do we think happened during that time? Because there are no archival records or really anything that would tell us these are the exact things that happened that evening. So what do we think happened that evening in the celebration?
The first story is essentially said that people are just waiting. Okay. The African Americans are essentially waiting. And mainly in churches, okay. Singing spirituals, maybe having specific ring shouts, which are a dance expression, and cultural, religious expression that's taking place. And they are praying in the first night. So it's a very religious celebration. And waiting for the word that Emancipation Proclamation is out, and that's at midnight. So watch night and the continuance of it is often a religious celebration. Okay. A religious celebration to celebrate freedom, of this idea of being taken out of bondage into freedom. You have songs being told, you have dancing taking place, you have preaching taking place. So this is sort of the story of what watch night was that night. It varied in regions. A lot of it is sort of folklore, right. But more so the memory of it is strong.
Right, and I think one of the things we were talking about was it seems to be very prevalent here in Missouri, and yes. I know one of the things we discussed was that the emancipation didn't affect enslaved people here in Missouri, but one thing I was reminded of really was that a lot of African Americans migrated from the South here.
Yes.
And so with that migration, a lot of traditions were brought with them, and this seems to have been one of them.
Yes. I mean, this is something that it did surprise me that Missouri has such a strong tradition of watch night. However, Missouri was very much so a slave state.
Right.
And so not only do you have people coming up from the South, mainly sort of Mississippi region or whatever, coming to the Midwest, you also have a very strong slavehold in Missouri. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation didn't technically free slaves or apply to slaves in Missouri, it did give sort of this hint. Freedom is coming.
Right.
Freedom is coming, and it's going to affect the slaves in Missouri, and it's going to affect free blacks, and this is opportunity. So watch night is very important to this idea of continually celebrating, often religious, this idea of freedom. And African Americans had 250 years of oppression right. here. And so no matter where you're from, it's
right.
something to celebrate.
Right. And I think that's a great connection because the other anniversary that's happening is the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. And so can you talk a little bit about the importance of that document because it is so tied to watch night?
And you know, interestingly, when you mentioned Missouri and that the Emancipation Proclamation did not apply, when you think about the Emancipation Proclamation, it was something that people knew were coming. When I say people, right. mainly African Americans knew was coming. So in 1863, when it comes out, African Americans, as they said in watch night, they're waiting for this. Right. So what you have taking place is leading to Emancipation Proclamation. When the war starts, Missouri doesn't succeed, and so you have Missouri here, but before that, when General Fremont, who was a general in the Union Army, comes to Missouri, because even though Missouri is considered to be Union, oh, they're fighting the entire time. I mean, you have pro-slavery versus anti-slavery. You have guerrilla warfare taking place in Missouri, and it's quite violent. And so what you have is General Fremont comes in and he notices all this violence taking place between pro-slavery and anti-slavery people. And he says in 1862, let's free all of the slaves in Missouri. So what you have is General Fremont trying to free all the slaves, not under President Abraham Lincoln's knowledge. Abraham Lincoln was not happy about this because he did not want to show that the Civil War was about slavery. If so, he's going to lose support from the North. He is going to lose support from the states that had slaves and didn't succeed. So he's trying to kind of keep it together. And so General Fremont does this in 1862, and even though he had to later revoke it and say, okay, slaves are still, it still sort of puts in the atmosphere emancipation. And so Missouri has this has a history that needs to be recognized in the Emancipation Proclamation, because you have General Fremont, you have people like former slaves Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, abolitionists like Thaddeus Stevens, who are continually telling Abraham Lincoln, you need to free the slaves. This war is about slavery. And no matter, what you think, this war is about slavery. And so the Emancipation Proclamation, in a lot of ways, was influenced by General Fremont, was influenced by African Americans. Soon as the Union soldiers show up, would run and leave their plantations. And so this all kind of leads to the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, where Abraham Lincoln definitely was internally debating this, but receiving a lot of pressures from people like General Fremont, from former slaves, from current slaves, from free blacks, from the North, that you need to free the slaves.
Well, and it's so interesting because then that also ties into something that just recently happened with the election, and the fact that the city of St. Louis is finally getting back control of their police department because they lost it during the Civil War, exactly for the reasons why you were what you were talking about.
Oh yeah, because during the Civil War, it's martial law. And so, I mean, I think that's something that we need to place, which is one of the reasons that Watch Night and Freedom's even so important here, because Missouri played such an important role in the institution of slavery in the Civil War. The Dred Scott case. This sort of General Fremont saying all slaves are free in 1862. So the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 didn't technically free the slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation essentially said that those slaves in the states that rebelled will be freed. Now, President Lincoln issued that during a time when those states didn't consider him president.
So he could say whatever he wanted. They weren't going to listen.
Yes, and so he wasn't listening. However, it was a moral victory for these abolitionists, for these free blacks, for these enslaved blacks. It was a moral victory that said that this war is about slavery. It made everyone very well aware this war is about slavery. And it caused some slaves to simply walk off the plantations immediately.
1201.
Oh yes, it's time to go. And not only that, but it also encouraged African Americans now can join in their fight. For the Union cause. You've always had African Americans who were spies for the Union cause. So now this is a very public proclamation. This war is about slavery. And it was a very problematic thing for Lincoln to do, because these states that did not succeed, that had slaves, they also are getting a warning. Slavery's about to end. It may not have included you in this document, but it's going to end.
Your time is coming. It is
coming. It may be gradual, but it's going to end. And that's something that it's worth celebrating. I mean, 150 years, that document is important because it represents a moral victory, it represents encouragement. It really pushed the tide of the Civil War.
Well, one of the things is, African Americans have such a strong tradition and culture of celebrations, and Watch Night is no exception. And one of the things that I just always remember is how certain scholars early on were saying that everything was lost during the Middle Passage. And really, how are these celebrations, things such as Watch Night, Juneteenth, really a reflection of that culture that obviously was not lost? And I think your background as a music historian really helps to show that.
I mean, that's something that for a long time scholars were saying when West Africans were caught and forced through the Middle Passage and came to North America, they lost all their culture. No. No. In fact, I mentioned earlier the ring shout being a part. That was something that we can see early on in West Africa before slavery even beginning. So through the music style, through the musical instruments, the fact that the banjo became America's folk instrument, and it comes from Africa, the dance style, this improvisation, the way songs are sung, the call and response, all of this was continued in North American slavery, and in there, not only with people in their minds, but in sort of the way they moved, the way they talked. it was very important to keep that heritage continued. So you have stories that are being told about this land that they heard about, and it's generations on.
Right.
And so, no, it's only a continual stream. Yes, they have to refashion and adapt some of it, but a lot of the West African cultures here help them to survive the institution of slavery.
Right. Well, I think it really just shows how the African American tradition is very much an oral culture, and it's passed down. And just because it's not written doesn't mean it's not necessarily true. And I think that's sometimes what you'll run into with certain things around African American history and culture. You'll say, because we can't find it in a book or because we can't find it in the archives, it must not exist. And it doesn't mean it didn't exist. The stories were just passed down in a very different way.
And you have to realize during slavery, in order to assert that agency, the autonomy of telling stories and having your own culture, it had to be kept private.
Right, right.
You know, so you do have slaves who are gathering together, and they would call it stealing away, and they would go off into the forest, and they would tell stories about
That's where you have the Brer Rabbit.
Oh yeah, the Brer Rabbit. I mean, whenever you look at Bugs Bunny, you should sort of think of Brer Rabbit, and that is a part of West African traditions continuing. And so a part of it also is slaves were taught to keep it quiet, keep it private. And so you don't have it documented as well early on because it was a part of their private culture. It was their own sort of backstage, something that you did not let other people in because they may take away from some of your rights. You're in a system where culturally they're trying to continually infringe on you. You're not human.
Right. Well, and it was against the law to read and write. So the last thing you can do is be writing down the stories in fear of your life.
And the last thing you can do is also tell stories about a smaller animal overpowering a larger animal, or telling powers of kings and queens in your homeland. Stories that give you empowerment as a human being while you're in a system where they're constantly telling you you're not worth anything or you're not a human. So what the West African cultures helped to keep them strong.
Right.
So it was very important.
Right, and I think if nothing else, we want to make sure that our viewers do understand that Watch Night is a very proud tradition in the African American culture and something that we really hope that people will, if they've never been before, they will participate. If they come every year, hopefully it's something they'll continue to come to. So coming up next on City Corner, we'll continue our talk about Watch Night, and we'll be talking more about an event that will be happening this year in Grand Center. So please stay tuned.
Yo, what up? It's your man Nelly, and you watching STL TV. Experience the Lou all day.
Have a kit so you're ready for any emergency. Develop a plan for what you and your family will do before disaster strikes, and stay informed during severe weather any way you can.
Abandoned and lost. From the dark, cold streets of the city to a cage in the local shelter, to heaven, your lap.
Lead paint poisoning affects 1 million children today. If you're pregnant or have young children and your home was built before 1978, you could be at risk. Learn how to protect your family. To find your home's danger zones, the health effects, or just to find help, log on to leadfreekids.org.
Welcome back to City Corner. Today we're talking about Watch Night and the activities that will take place this year as part of First Night. Joining me now is Reverend Rodney Francis from Washington Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church and Pastor Rick Potts from St. Alphonsus Liguori Rock Catholic Church. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Reverend Francis, you were the one that kind of came up with this idea of merging kind of Watch Night along with First Night. So can you talk a little bit about why and how you came up with that?
Well, I approached the folks at Grand Center because our church is located in Grand Center District.
Correct.
And each year they have this big celebration, but I noticed that not many of my congregants and not many other friends that I've spoken to participate. And being new to St. Louis, my family and I came here about 5 years ago, we wanted to be a part of what's happening in the region, what's happening now, all of this fun activity going on. And so it dawned on me that one of the reasons why most are not there, because a good number of us are in worship.
Right.
And so this connection of Watch Night and its historic connection with Freedom's Eve.
Right.
And quite frankly, when I approached them, I wasn't thinking about the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. That wasn't even on my radar. I was simply trying to approach them about a way to engage more African Americans to participate in the city happenings here in Grand Center. And so that was the premise. And then when we found out that this was the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, that just really took it off. And they were excited about it. We were excited about it. And so here we are.
Right. Right. Well, and talk a little bit, starting with you, Reverend Potts, about how do your churches celebrate Watch Night? So what would a traditional Watch Night service look like at the Rock Church?
I think every congregation does it a little different, but,
right.
but the basic elements are, music, the Word, readings from the Word, the Bible, and preaching. Okay. One of maybe a different thing we do at the Rock is we have moving on declarations. So we fill out slips of paper of things we want to leave behind us and things we want to be blessed and in the new year. And so we go out at midnight and we burn those slips of paper on our front porch area, which of course is right there on Grand Boulevard. Right. And one year, hay rides were going from First Night, past us as we were burning declarations. So they're looking at us, why are these church people burning slips of paper and singing? And, so we've had the same thought, and then sometimes, I've got some members that don't attend our Watch Night because they're involved in some way with First Night. So those are, I guess, the basic elements. In 2000, we baptized 9 people at our Watch Night service, kind of a way to bring in the millennium. We had a new baptismal pool, so.
Right. And I think that's an important thing that I think I've kind of left out because I might have assumed people knew, but Watch Night services usually start around 10:30 or 11 and they go through New Year. So this isn't a 7 p.m. service, a 6 p.m. service, so you are going to church through New Year's.
That is absolutely correct, and as Father Potts mentioned, different communities do it differently. Right. Some choose to be at the altar praying on their knees when the New Year strikes. Some choose to be hearing the Word of God preached the New Year in. Right. It all depends on that community, on how they choose to do it, but the basic premise is still the same, that it's a time-honored practice, tradition in the African American church that for Watch Night service, we come together to praise God, thank God, and to usher in this new year of new hopes and new dreams and new possibilities. And so it takes on different modalities. I grew up in the South, North Florida area, and we would actually have the lights out about 2 minutes before, and they would have folks positioned in the north, the south, the east, and the west, and it will begin this amazing call and response about watchmen in the east, what time is it? It's 1 minute before the hour of midnight, and then they will go from the east, the north, the south, the west until the new year rings in, and then it comes in with a culmination of a shout. So.
And I think it's just such a wonderful idea that I'm surprised Grant Center hadn't thought of it earlier to invite. I mean, there is a church on every corner in Grant Center, and so to not involve them earlier, I think, you know, this is just a wonderful opportunity. And so I also want to make sure people understand that there will actually be a regular watch night service that evening. So for people who say, well, I don't want to go down because I have to go to my own watch night service, it will be a regular watch night service that evening.
That is absolutely right. We are planning a watch night service. It is all the churches in Midtown.
Okay.
All the pastors and the congregations in Midtown have come together. We've been meeting with the Grand Center folks. We've been organizing and planning this worship experience that will begin at, doors will open at 10 and go, and by 11:45 we will be.
Right, they want to make sure you're out so everyone can participate in the fireworks. So it won't go through New Year's, but at least, it will be it will be the same experience, except it'll end a little before New Year's.
Yeah, and the fireworks will be a part of the experience. So it'll be a combination.
And so, Reverend Potts, what do you hope people will get out of this? So because you think you'll have some people who experience Watch Night every year, but then you'll also have some people who just wander in and say, kind of, what's going on here? What do you hope they'll get out of it?
Well, I mean, myself, I certainly didn't grow up with a watch night service. I grew up in Jefferson County. But I think the experience of my, you know, being at the Rock Church and learning about this has not just, I can appreciate it from an African-American perspective, but from my own perspective, my own freedoms that I value, you know, and as we value as a nation. I mean, this is a celebration of all those things, I think, that you can bring to this. That I think, because I think that's what New Year is for all of us, is we all have hopes. We all make the same silly promises every New Year that we're going to change. But we do hope for new things in the new year. We hope for that we're better in the new year. And ultimately, this was a hope by a people that were oppressed, that freedom was finally coming. And, you know, as you spoke earlier, the Emancipation Proclamation certainly wasn't a perfect document. It didn't free everybody, but it did give people that hope that things could change.
And I think, you know, you put it so well. It really is just a celebration of freedom regardless of your race, really just a celebration of citizenship and an opportunity for everyone to kind of rejoice in that fact. And so hopefully we'll have a nice, diverse audience there on December 31st who'll be able to appreciate that. And then, Reverend Francis, what do you hope that people will get out of it?
Well, I hope that it becomes a teachable moment. I hope that it becomes an opportunity for cross-cultural understanding and appreciation. I'm hoping that many who come will see this historical connection, this rich history that's connected with the American history. I mean, it comes right out of the American drama narrative, and it is still practiced today, and it's still celebrated with a different meaning. It's more spiritual than, more so with the physical freedom aspect, but it is still worship today. So I'm hoping that it will become a moment of cross-cultural education and understanding.
Right, and I think Professor Thompson earlier made a really good point about it. It did really start as a religious experience. I mean, because people, for enslaved people, did gather in churches, so it wasn't something that was transitioned from other spaces, but it kind of started in the church as well. So I think that's really important to kind of recognize that it was always this type of spiritual experience waiting for freedom. Now, I know you're also hoping that your congregants and your choirs and everyone will be involved in that watch night service at the Scottish Rite Temple. So can you talk a little bit about how you think that service will unfold, since I think all of the pastors are the ones putting it together?
That is correct. Well, as Father Potts mentioned, it will be scripture reading. It's going to be music, of course. It's going to be some drama component that will be a part of it, dance or drama. There'll be something there, creative. But moreover, there will be the Word. That is what sustains us as a people of faith. We believe that the Word of God is important.
For people who don't know what the word, it's a sermon.
It's a sermon.
Okay, because like you keep saying the words, so for people who may not know, like, what is he talking about? It's a sermon.
Yeah, that's our religious language.
That's right.
Yes. But yes, there will be a sermon. And so we're excited about that. And we're excited to invite the entire region to come and worship with us, either as an active participant or just passively observing whatever you choose, however you want to engage, we welcome and invite all to come and be a part of this grand Watch Night Freedom's Eve experience.
Well, I think it's such a wonderful model because, as everyone knows, they always say the most segregated day of the year is Sunday because everyone goes off to their own churches. And this is such a great model, not only for this event, but for future events as we look at ways of bringing the community together. And so really this collaboration between Grand Center and its neighboring churches can be modeled in other areas of the region. It doesn't hopefully have to stop, on January 1, we see the fireworks and everyone goes back to their home and neighborhoods. So what do you hope I know what you want people to get out of Watch Night, but what do you hope will happen after this? Hopefully you hope this isn't the end of it. So what would you see going on beyond Watch Night?
Well, I hope we can continue in collaboration. I hope that our communities are part of First Night, in different ways in the future. For myself, I'm very fortunate because my parish is one of those integrated. As we had a famous columnist come to us once and say that. But maybe for St. Louis to go explore a little bit different communities, be challenged, not to be so afraid, not to be, go find out what's happening in some other church on a Sunday, The other part of Watch Night for a lot of communities is a meal. We usually do a breakfast after midnight and a champagne breakfast. Some churches I know do a potluck before, and there's some churches in Grand Center area are still going to do their meal. I know some are still planning on doing it before, some might do it afterwards, so you might find a meal somewhere, But go out on a Sunday or go out on some other event. But if we would, find out what we do on Sunday, I think it would draw us closer together as a community and as a city. So.
Well, Reverend Francis, what do you hope not only comes out of Watch Night, but beyond?
Well, I do hope that it does foster an opportunity for us to open up and appreciate the diversity that we have all around us. And diversity, is a good thing. Different doesn't necessarily have to mean deficient. It's just different. And I think that we can celebrate that. And it doesn't have to minimize who we are in our own cultural experience. And so I'm hoping that that out of this will come that there will be some receptiveness to, celebrate the differences that we see in other cultures around us and not try to homogenize everything, but just celebrate it as it is and what it contributes and its uniqueness and its value to the larger community. And so I'm very hopeful of that aspect, and I also am very committed to working towards making the region a better region, And so I want St. Louis region to be a place that is really welcome and inviting to all. And I think that this can certainly be one of those things that can help bring that to pass.
Great. Well, I know it will be a wonderful event on December 31st, and we would like all our viewers to check out the Grand Center website to learn more about Watch Night, the time, the location, and hopefully people will come out and attend. And thank you again for joining us on City Corner, and see you next time.